Frank Gehry. Frank Gehry is one of the most famous architects alive today. For us in Britain, he is probably best known for the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, but he has built remarkable buildings all over the world in a style that is highly distinctive and instantly recognisable. He was born Frank Owen Goldberg in 1929 in Toronto, Canada. In 1947, when he was 18, his family moved to California and he has lived there ever since. He changed his name to Frank O. Gehry in 1956 as a response to the anti-Semitism he had experienced. He graduated in architecture from the University of Southern California in 1954 and set up his own practice in 1962. His style has been described as deconstructivism, the breaking down of functions and forms into their component parts. It was a reaction to the highly functional modernist architecture that dominated much of the 20th century. Postmodernists responded by going back to history for their inspiration. Deconstructivists sought by means of unusual alienation effects to emphasize the lack of perfection in their designs as a reaction to the simple white cubes, the machines for living of the modernists, which seemed to be aiming for a clinical perfection. The building which initially brought Gehry to the attention of the architectural fraternity was his own house in Santa Monica, California, originally built in 1920, but converted by Gehry after he moved in 1977. Using materials such as corrugated iron and chain-link fencing, it looks a bit like a scrapyard. It was the antithesis of the clean, functional modernist style and seemed intended to disrupt traditional ways of seeing. The California Aerospace Museum of 1984 was his most notable building of the 1980s, and in 1989 he was awarded the Pritzker Prize, the USA's top award for architecture. Also in 1989 he carried out his first European commission at the Vitra furniture factory at Weil am Rhein in Germany, near the Swiss city of Basel. This extraordinary complex is host to buildings by a number of the world's great architects. The Chiat Day building in Venice, California, with its distinctive binocular design, followed in 1991. Compared to Gehry's house, these buildings have had to subordinate their design to their function, but they still look very unusual and spectacular, with their odd juxtaposition of planes and free-flowing curves, which were to become very much part of his vocabulary. In 1997 he produced the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, which brought him international acclaim. The New Yorker magazine described it as the masterpiece of the 20th century, while architect Philip Johnson described it as the greatest building of our time. It looks like a large beached fish, and fish designs do recur in his work. He calls it going back in time to the very beginning. The building is clad in titanium and glitters in the sunlight, looking not unlike the scales on a fish. The building led to what is known as the Bilbao Effect, the use of iconic buildings to kick-start the economic and cultural revitalization of cities. It has been estimated that $3.5 billion has been added to the Basque economy as a result of the building. As an art gallery, it does have its drawbacks, however, as the building very much competes with the exhibits for your attention rather than providing a neutral backdrop. How many people are there to see the building rather than what is on display inside it? Since that time he has completed many prestigious commissions around the world, often featuring billowing sails of metal or distorted structures. Here are some of the best known. The Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles was first proposed in 1988 and finally opened in 2003. Its stainless steel sails reflect Gehry's passion for sailing. The Dancing House in Prague from 1996, also known as Fred and Ginger, was produced in collaboration with local architect Vlado Miljanic as offices for a Dutch insurance company. Its two towers on the street corner are seemingly swept into an embrace with each other. Completed in 2011, the Beekman Tower in Manhattan, also known as 8 Spruce Street, is a 76-story apartment building. Clad in stainless steel, its exterior seems to ripple, and it has been acclaimed as a welcome addition to the iconic Manhattan skyline. In Paris, the Fondation Louis Vuitton Gallery, completed in 2014, is clad in 12 glass sails, which cover the concrete-clad gallery spaces. Gehry's first project in Australia was the Dr. Chow Chak Wing building at the University of Technology, Sydney, finished in 2014. Laying its 320,000 purpose-made bricks required brickies to work on practice frames before attempting the final construction. The Marqués de Riscal vineyard in El Ciego, northern Spain, is the setting for Gehry's first hotel from 2006. Brightly clad sheets of metal seem to fly free. Gehry has only built one permanent building in the UK. This is the Maggie Center at Ninewells Hospital in Dundee for cancer patients, opened in 2003. He also produced a temporary pavilion at the Serpentine Gallery's 2008 summer exhibition in London. Constructed of wood-clad steel columns and glass sheets, it was part amphitheatre, part promenade. This seems like a reminder of the days of his own house in Santa Monica. He is also, along with Foster Associates, the architect of the High Street phase of the redevelopment of Battersea Power Station. And of course he is 91 this year. Gehry's work has generally been well received, and his buildings are eye-catching and memorable. It is exciting architecture. Criticism of his work is that because the shape of the buildings often does not reflect their function, they waste resources, and they frequently do not relate well to their surroundings. Materials are often highly expensive, and many of his works have been for corporate entities. And as I commented over the Guggenheim, does the design of the building become more important than the function it is supposed to serve?